Thank you very much, Julian, and also welcome from my side. I'm extremely happy and honored that so many people came to work on a topic that we and my team have worked on for more than 10 years. And now, not suddenly, but slowly and steadily, it's taking up an interest. And obviously, we are intrinsically motivated and believe that circular economy is a very important topic and needs to be worked on. So thank you very much for coming and working on this for the entire week. Having said this, I'm extremely honored to have one of the heroes of circular economy, I'd say, with us here tonight, because in a, well, not representative poll, but if I ask students, so do you know of a company that champions sustainability and social entrepreneurship at the same time? People say, yeah, two. One is Patagonia, and the other is Fairphone. So, with that, a warm welcome to Bas van Abel, who is with us today, and I think who is one of the inspirational figures when it comes to this sustainability transition and innovations and social entrepreneurship. And what he is probably and obviously best known for, but I just learned he founded several startups, is Fairphone, a company that was founded as an NGO in 2010 and then transitioned, and I'm looking forward to the discussion how you managed this transitioned in 2013 to become a social enterprise, of which Bas was the CEO until 2018. He's now part of the advisory board of Fairphone still, and has already founded a new startup called, I hope I can pronounce it correctly, De Click. Is that how? Okay. Enabling the take-back of biogenic waste in cities, I think. So he is already focusing, coming from repair, recycling, and reduce. If you think about different R strategies in circular economy, he's moving on to the next R strategy, regenerative purpose. So I think that's really great. Bas studied electrical engineering and computer science at TU Delft, and he holds a degree in interaction design from the Hogeschool voor de Kunsten, which I think is an art school, in Utrecht. And with this, I'm extremely honored, and I give the floor to you, and welcome Bas van Abel.
Thanks. Wow, Fairphone and, oh well, let's be honest, Patagonia and Fairphone. I get warm and fuzzy from the inside already for that. Yeah, great to be here, and what an introduction. Thanks. And I'm looking forward also to the discussion, because there is indeed, you know, it's been a journey, and I'd like to take you on the journey of Fairphone. We can talk also a bit about the other startup I founded. But I'll take you along the journey of Fairphone, and I can hopefully inspire you or get some stuff that I've done, might have done better, that you can do right the first time, and yeah, that you can take with you in your projects. But I'd like to start with a small anecdote, actually. A while ago, I have 3 kids, right? So the whole car was packed, everything in the car, I even pushed the suitcases back in the car, and we were ready to go. Whole family was in the car already, but my son, he was still in the house, and he came out of the house crying. Why? Because his Nintendo DS broke. I don't know if you know the Nintendo DS, but to give you a bit of a picture, that was at that time was the love of his life, because he was on that thing the whole day. And for me, I have to tell you, it was kind of an important device as well, because it would keep him busy in the car. So I was, you can imagine, it was kind of a stressful moment for the both of us. And I looked at Bo, and as you told, I have an electromechanical engineering degree, so I said to Bo, listen, Bo, don't worry, Daddy will fix it. So I took the screwdriver, started screwing and screwing and screwing, and yeah, at a certain point, the metal dust came falling out of the screw holes. And I don't know if there's engineers here, but if metal dust comes falling out of the screw holes, I see you nodding, well, you screwed up the screws, right? Yes. And the thing is, if you screw up the screws, well, you're screwed, because there's no way to be able to open up that device anymore. So I had to find out the hard way that Nintendo does not want me to open up that device, because they use special screws, tri-ring screws or something, and you need a special screwdriver for that. So that really pissed me off. I took the Nintendo, threw it against the wall, the thing broke, Bo was crying in the corner, and well, that was not the great start of a holiday, I can tell you, but I was thinking about why the hell does Nintendo not want me to open up something that I own? And my motto in life is, if you can't open it, you don't own it. And I take that very seriously. And I've been opening up a lot of stuff, and I can tell you life has become shittier and shittier for people that open up a lot of stuff. Let's just take this, for example. Is anyone here in the audience that has, or is any one of you that has opened up their phone recently to replace a battery? Well, you're all engineers, right? Normally there's like one person going like, quite a lot of people. You have a Fairphone? No. You have a Fairphone? No, you replaced the battery. You have a very old Nokia? No. You're just very good at opening up products. No? Okay. Is there anyone here who has recently replaced their own screen? That's a lot less. That's a lot less. And how did you do that? What was it? Oh, shit, you have a Fairphone, right? You have it. Thanks for that. Anyone without a Fairphone or a Fairphone who recently? Yeah, okay. How did that go?
Me and my dad, on Christmas, we fixed my mom's iPhone screen.
Yeah.
We did it for like 2 days.
2 days. Yeah, exactly. And then you finished, and you had still 5 screws in your hand, and you thought like, fuck, what did I miss? But yeah, it's and for the people that have replaced their screen or have replaced their battery, they probably had to bring it to the shop, cost you a lot of money. And the reason for that is, and you said it, they glue the battery to the inside. Because we are suffering from something called smartphone anorexia. We like things thin. And the thinner it gets, the more difficult it gets to replace it, or to open it, or to even, it gets difficult and it gets very expensive, and you need special stuff for that. So the result of this is that people use smartphones only for 2 to 3 years on average. And that can be much, much longer if you look at the technology. So that's a shame, right? But you know how it feels. You have a phone, and you had it for 2 years. You have a crack in the screen already. The battery goes down. It just happens after 2 years. It's the physical proportion of a battery. You can't just replace it. So you just think, well, the operator comes with a new subscription, a new offer. You get a shiny new phone. You think, I'll take that new phone. And I toss the old phone with all the rest of the phones in the drawer. Recognize that, right? So, and that phone is lying in a drawer, and only 15% of the phones get recycled. And that's a huge waste. Because from a sustainability point of view, it's extremely simple. If you use your phone twice as long, you only need to produce half the amount of phones. You have half the amount of electronic waste. And for the mathematicians under us, it only costs you half the amount of money as well. So it's kind of stupid that we don't do that. And still, we have this system. So that's the reason why at Fairphone we make repairable phones, modular phones. It's a bit like Lego. It's easy to replace a screen in the sense that you order it online, you get it shipped. Sorry that you broke it, but I mean, it must have felt great to be able to replace your own screen. I like that feeling always when that happens. And all the parts are made in such ways, engineered in such a way that it's the more expensive parts are not connected to the cheaper to the cheaper parts that might break, so that these modules can be easily replaced for a low cost. We give more than 5-year warranty on the phone, standard. And we give more than 8 years of software support. And why? Because we want you to use the phone as long as possible. And that is, it might sound easy and might sound very logical, but it's very difficult to do that in an industry where everything is about the next new component, the next new thing. So how do you change that? Where do you start? Well, I started, when we thought about Fairphone, we started with sending a letter to the EU Commissioner. Because they were thinking about the Eco-Design Directive. And some might know it's a directive that is set up for manufacturers to make sure that they produce products that are repairable. Smartphones were not part of that. And I sent a letter and I said, listen, Frans Timmermans, why don't you make smartphones part of that Eco-Design Directive? Because that means that we get rid of those non-replaceable smartphone batteries. And to my surprise, he sent back a letter and he said, yeah, we'll take it into consideration. And what really put a smile on my face was a couple of months back, I read this on the news that the EU got this law through. And from now on, all smartphone manufacturers have to have a replaceable battery if they have a certain weight, but they also have to make sure that the phones are designed in a way that is easily repairable. And what put a really big smile on my face, and I'm not saying that this all was done because I wrote that letter, because there was a whole lobby behind it and a lot of people involved in this, and not just Fairphone, but what happened is that Nokia just launched a repairable phone and they're taking Fairphone head on. And why this put a smile on my face is because this was the idea of Fairphone from the start. We wanted to raise awareness on the problems that the industry is facing, non-replaceable batteries, stuff like that. We want to set an example, innovate, show that it's possible. But with an innovation, you're not there yet. You need to scale it. And we saw scaling, not just scaling our own company, but also involving other companies to change it on a systemic level. And that's why we want to motivate the industry to also do differently. And campaigning has been the DNA of Fairphone from the start. So in 2010, as you said, it was an NGO, or it was non-profit at that time. It was basically a campaign. And we were thinking about how can we raise awareness on the impact of smartphones on the environment and on people, the negative impact. But again, where do you start? A smartphone has more than 1,000 components. These 1,000 components we put together in a factory, and these components are made by other factories. So hundreds and hundreds of factories are involved in making that smartphone. There's more than 50 minerals going into a smartphone, which are mined all around the world. So we're not talking about a banana here, right? We're talking about a very complex product. And, well, as already mentioned, I have a design background. And as a designer, one of the things I've learned and which fascinates me is that everything around us, everything we use, everything we eat, either we take from the ground or grows on the ground. We are able to make something as complex as a smartphone from just taking stones and rocks out of the ground, working together in the economic system. And through that system, we can make something as complex as a smartphone that no one in the whole world as an individual would ever be able to understand its complexity. So it's great. It's a great system, and we can make stuff we can't make ourselves. But we've alienated from it. Where does it come from? Who makes it? Where does it end up if we don't use it anymore? And that's when we said, you know what? If everything comes from the ground, why don't we make a campaign where we also go to the mines and let the world look through the eyes of a phone what the world looks like? And we take people along. So that's what we did. We went to the mines, and from there, we took people along of the journey of how a phone is being made. And along the way, we tried to improve things and take the industry with us, and we called it Fairphone. So what does the world look like through the eyes of a phone? Let me start with a stone here. It is a stone I took from a mine in Congo. It's called cobalt. Is anyone here who knows what cobalt is being used for? It's a pretty hot mineral at the moment. Capacitors. Yeah, that's coltan. That's another very problematic mineral. Cobalt? Batteries? Yes, batteries. It's used for batteries. It's used for components as well. Yeah, so it's used for a lot of different parts in a phone. But the main reason why cobalt at this moment is such a hot mineral is because it's used for batteries. And batteries we use for our electric vehicles. Batteries are basically the source of our energy transition. And this stone, 40% of cobalt is mined in countries like Congo and the Great Lake region. And a lot of the mines in Congo, they still look like this. And this is a picture I took from a guy who was mining this stone with his shovel, just going deep, 20 to 30 meters deep into the ground, without any protection, and making a very, very low income, I can tell you. But it's not the only problem. There's still tens of thousands of children involved in mining so that we can drive our electric vehicles, so that we can have our smartphones. And it's becoming a bigger and bigger problem for the whole industry. And I'd like to show you a little video how that affects the industry as well. Oh, let me see if I can play that. Yes.
The world's biggest tech companies are being sued over child mining debts in the Democratic Republic of Congo. A human rights group filed a lawsuit on behalf of 14 Congolese families. They accuse companies like Apple, Google, Dell, Microsoft, and Tesla from benefiting from child labor to mine cobalt. That mineral is key to powering batteries used in our cell phones, computers, and our electric cars.
CBS News launched an investigation into child cobalt miners in Congo last year. And foreign correspondent Deborah Pata exposed the horrific conditions, and now she's taking a closer look at this unprecedented lawsuit.
And that's not the only problem that's happening now. If you look at the east of Congo, in the last 10, 15 years, 20 years, millions of people have died in conflicts related to the mining of these minerals we use in our phones and our electronics. They call them conflict minerals, very similar to blood minerals. You might be familiar with blood diamonds as well. And then these stones, they go to refineries and they go into components, and these components are made in factories all around the world where people work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for a minimum wage, whereas they have to work all these hours because they can't even work for a living wage. And then these components, these phones, we use them for 2 to 3 years, and they end up, I was in Ghana a couple of months ago, they end up in dumps like this, and you can imagine when you have phones which are very difficult to disassemble, where it's difficult to get all the parts or even the batteries out, what they do is they just burn them to get the minerals out, when all the toxics and everything just goes into the ground. And this is basically the face of all those phones or actually, those little phones that get a second life in another country. So that is another problem. And then you go to these big fairs. I was in Berlin last week on the IFA. It's an electronics fair, and it's all shiny and new, and it's the next bendable display. It's a new, there's even another camera in the phone. And you think by yourself, like, how the hell am I going to change an industry like that? Right? You get a bit depressed when you see all this stuff. So what I think about then is a quote from the Dalai Lama, and it says, if you think you're too small to have an impact, try going to bed with a mosquito in the room. And I tell you, Fairphone wanted to be that mosquito for the whole industry. So we set up a company because we wanted to be part of that industry. Because what can you better do than change it from within, from inside out? So I took that stone, and I knew we needed to have a buyer. So I went to a buyer. I don't know if you know KPN, but it's like Swisscom. It's the biggest Dutch operator. And I took that stone. I went to the board. Somebody got me at the board level, and I put it on the table and said, guys, listen. This stone will become a Fairphone. And if you're going to buy 1,000 of them now, you're going to be launching partner. And these guys, they looked at me, and they all got silent. And I thought I was going to be kicked out again because they thought I was nuts. But one of the guys actually stood up and he said, we have to do something about this. We are in. Why? Because he just read a book about Congo on his holiday, and he said, this is really important. So I was lucky. Because a couple of weeks later, something magically happened. They signed a contract. This is the part in the contract, where they bought 1,000 Fairphones for a maximum of 450 euros, a non-existing phone from a non-existing company, from a guy that never made a phone before. And they bought it. But the great thing is, because they bought it, people start thinking like, wait a minute, if KPN buys 1,000 phones from Fairphone, it must be real, right? It must be a real company. So we put this in the media, and we said, yeah, KPN, this big operator, they bought already 1,000 Fairphones, and we're going to produce it. So what we did next was we set up a crowdfunding, and we launched this video.
Stuff. More stuff. All this stuff. You name it, we have it. But what we don't have, a clue about what's inside this stuff. We don't know where it comes from, or who made it. We know almost nothing about our stuff. That's why we started with an alternative for the thing we can't live without. Our phone. We are the people of Fairphone.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello. Good day.
Hoi.
Guten Tag. Hello.
And this is what we're building. The Fairphone. As smart as other phones, but fair. Which makes it more than a phone. It's a beginning, a step in the right direction. We're making it happen. A smartphone that's made in a way that puts people and the environment first. We're already working hard on the first batch. We're almost there. And that's where you come in. To start making them, we need you to pre-order. Because by buying and owning this phone, you can make a difference. You become part of change. Buy a phone. Start a movement at fairphone.com.
Yeah, so we launched that video, and we thought we'll see if they're going to buy this. And within 2 to 3 months' time, we sold 25,000 phones, and that was the maximum we were going to produce. And the receipt of these phones were being sold on eBay at a certain point for double the price, because people wanted to have that phone so they really wanted it. So it was kind of a success. We sold 25,000 phones that didn't exist. And the company never made a phone before, and I can tell you that we had no idea what we were doing. But we were on a roll, we were successful. We had our crowdfunding, and I had 7.5 million euros on the bank account. So, I can tell you, I slept like a baby. I woke up every 2 hours and cried. Because I can tell you, at the moment that you have 25,000 people waiting for you to make a product you've never made before, and it's one of the most complex products in the world, well, it's getting scary. And on top of that, I never set up a company before. Well, I think the only report I ever had was an intern. So there was kind of a challenge there. So I was crying in my bed, and my partner at the time, she looked at me and she said, Bas, what's happening? I said, well, I can't do this. I have no idea how to do this. You know what? I'll just pay everyone back their money. And we made our point. And let somebody else do it, and we showed it's possible, and that the demand is there, right? And, she looked at me and she said, like, Bas, you pussy. You will never ever get this chance in your life again to do something this important. And these people, they never bought a phone. Of course, they know with crowdfunding, you know how it goes, right? Because we basically put a button on the website that said, you buy this phone now, you'll get it in 6 to 8 months, probably. So these people, they bought into change. They bought into showing that they want to make a difference with their wallet. They want to show that that demand is there. And just going, I mean, we're in Switzerland, and I have to mention the highest Fairphone penetration in Switzerland at that time. The highest Fairphone penetration was in Switzerland at that time. Most of the phones went to Germany, but a lot of the phones were being sold already in Switzerland. Now, who has a Fairphone? Just curious. Wow, that's a lot of people from. Yeah, I always see. The funny thing is that when I see that there's a lot of people who have a Fairphone. But I once had a guy, I don't know if you know that called Waka Waka. It's like this the solar light, and the solar light. He won a prize. He was on stage, and he asked the people on stage. He said, "And who has a solar light?" And then everybody went, "Yes, I have a solar light." And I looked at him and said, "Wow, you're going to have a big sales problem because everybody has your product already." So I'm happy to see some people not putting up their hands. I wanted to say. But anyway, I was really happy that my wife told me to go on, and that my family was supporting me on this, because after 1.5 years, we had 40 people working at Fairphone. We sold over 60,000 phones, and we had 16 million turnover, and we were the fastest growing startup in Europe. And what made me really, really proud is that in 2016, this very, very small mosquito was on a list from Greenpeace, where every year Greenpeace did the guide to green electronics. And we were probably the smallest electronics company in the world at that time. And we were the greenest, not even on social, they just looked at the ecological footprint of Fairphone. We were the greenest of them all. And that was just in 2016. And it showed us that we could make that impact even as a very, very, very small company in this huge industry, if you want to. And just fast forwarding, like you said already, I'm not, I sleep at night now because I'm not running the company anymore. I'm still involved, I'm still on the board of Fairphone, so I'm still, I still like to be involved and see what they're doing. But the company grew into people, I think we have 150 people now all over the world. From all over the world. We have a team in Taiwan. We have around, still not a huge company, but around 40-50 million turnover. And we're a profitable company. And we just launched our latest phone. And I really want to show you also our latest phone, because it's a phone that I was less involved in, but it really makes me proud to see that something you start also goes on and on. And the Fairphone 5 got launched this month, and I'd like to show you the launching video.
The new Fairphone 5 is designed for you, made fair. It's got 3 amazing 50-megapixel cameras to shoot in wide and ultra-wide. It has blazing fast 5G and comes with a 5-year warranty. It's future-proof. It has a special chipset that guarantees software updates for the next 8 years.
Nah, do phones even last that long?
This one does. It's easy to repair because it's modular. You can replace a part yourself in case you break something. It's 100% electronic waste neutral. It's made in fair factories. It's Fairphone's most sustainable phone yet. That's why they say, it's designed for you, made fair.
Yeah, and as proud as I am of the phone, obviously the most proud I am with what we're doing behind the scenes. And to just run you through that before I start wrapping up a bit, it's a very complex supply chain. We work in 4 areas to focus a bit on the problems that are connected in that area. As I told you, a big area we work on is on the fair materials. The Fairphone 5 has, for example, more than 70% of the focus materials we work on, like 12 to 14 materials. More than 70% is recycled or is from certified sources. And we're the first ones to actually do certified fair trade gold and silver in the production of the phone. We have set up in the mines in in Congo, a program called Fair Cobalt Alliance. And right now, Google, Tesla also joined us in these programs. So that impact is going to be very big at the numbers that these guys are using these minerals. And we're super proud of that. It's a spin-off of the company. So actually an NGO, a non-profit spun off from the company again, which is an independent NGO that is making sure that the Fair Cobalt Alliance is run in a way that we don't have conflict of interest in there as well. Yeah, we work with factories, obviously, and we're the only one in the industry that pays a living wage. So we pay a bonus so that people make a living wage instead of a minimum wage. We work, obviously, we also do recycling. Yeah, so if you look at the recycling, we call it e-waste neutral. That means that we take back as much in weight as we put into the world. But to be honest, in the end, recycling is just plainly stupid. It's a very stupid process in the industry. What you do is, it's basically waste collection. You just collect waste, you collect all the electronics, you collect all the electronic waste, you put it together in a big bin, and you just throw it in the oven, you smelt it, and you get the minerals out. So it's one of the last things you want to do is recycling. So that's why we focus so much on that long-lasting design. We want people to use that phone as long as possible. And what we've done is that we've implemented all these principles also into a new product, headphones. So replaceable batteries, all components that everything can be replaced. The leather might wear out. You just buy a new piece for that. And also the same principles on the supply chain and the mining and the manufacturing. But if you just look at what makes a company is also that you have to make a profit. Well, have to. I mean, it's good if you make a profit, I can tell you, for the survival of your company. The problem with that is that we also know that with everything we're creating, we're also destroying something. That's a philosophical fact. With Fairphone, we know that with creating, we're also destroying something. And what we try to do is to make that kind of dilemma part of the company. So what we've done is that we've set KPIs in the company. I don't know if you guys are familiar with KPIs. It's the performance indicators of your company. It's where you measure the company's success. And those success measurements go all the way up to the shareholders. So everybody looks at how these KPIs are performing in terms of the success of the company. One of the KPIs is that we say we want to sell as many phones as possible. But we also have a KPI where we say we want people to use the phones as long as possible. And that is a bomb in the head of a salesperson, because that means that people that normally sell, that sell phones, they want to sell that to people that already are customers because it's the easiest. But at Fairphone, you can't. So what we've done is we've challenged ourselves in the core of the company to disconnect as much as possible the use of resources from our business model. And the result of that is something we call Fairphone Easy, and I want to show you. It's a Fairphone as a service model, so that we also look at how can we make a business model that's more aligned with the mission of the company. We're trying it out just in Holland, so that's why it's in Dutch only.
Fairphone Easy, een duurzame smartphone voor een vast bedrag per maand. Easy, omdat je alleen uit 4 abonnementen moet kiezen. En klaar.
Nadat je hebt aangemeld, krijg je de nieuwste Fairphone 4 met beschermende accessoires erbovenop. Daarna nog even je huidige simkaarten in en je bent good to go. Oh, en vergeet de zorgeloze reparatieservice niet.
Luister, het zou niet Fairphone Easy heten als we niet ook gratis reparaties aanbieden. Is er iets kapot gegaan? Wij zorgen voor een vervangende telefoon binnen 48 uur. Je zult nauwelijks een appje missen. Na afloop van je abonnementsperiode kan je je abonnement gewoon door laten lopen of opzeggen of wijzigen. Stuur je Fairphone dan terug naar ons. Wij zorgen ervoor dat deze opnieuw wordt gebruikt of dat de onderdelen worden gerecycled.
Fairphone Easy is dé ultieme vorm van wat wij altijd zeggen, changes in your hands. Want wanneer je een abonnement neemt, krijg je veel meer in your hands dan alleen een smartphone. Je zet echt verandering in gang. Want je kiest voor een smartphone die gemaakt is met eerlijke en verantwoorde materialen, betere arbeidsomstandigheden, en je draagt bij aan een meer circulaire economie. Dus het zou geweldig zijn als jij ons helpt te laten zien dat de manier waarop we producten maken en gebruiken echt anders kan.
All right, so before we go to the Q&A, I'd like to share with you also something someone said. A bit of a hero of me, I could say, and that is Gus Peth. And Gus Peth has been working on a lot of the reports on sustainability, advising governments on how they incorporate sustainability within their policies. It's a scientist. He's been working his whole life basically in solving the big environmental problems of our time. And Gus Peth at a certain point said, I always thought that the biggest environmental challenges that we have are biodiversity loss, global warming, and that kind of stuff. But boy, was I wrong. The top environmental problems of our time are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And you don't solve those with science. You don't solve those with legislation. For that, you need a cultural transition. And I believe that a cultural transition starts with establishing a more healthy relationship with the products and the food and everything we use. Because the most sustainable phone is the phone you already have. Thanks very much.
So thank you very much, Bas. I was hoping you would have been a little more optimistic. I thought like the pessimistic part is for me and tomorrow the critical thinking night, but that's totally fine. Let's start talking a little bit about your insect life. You said earlier on you wanted to be a mosquito. And your company mission, I read, is by establishing a viable market for ethical consumer electronics, we motivate the entire industry to act more responsible. That is was your company mission. So I'm wondering if you are the mosquito, and then I look at your sales projection. You can't look at from my small print. You can't see it from my small printout, but it's growing. It's a linear growth at least. So I'm wondering if you want to fulfill your mission, being this nasty mosquito, but then you have the aspiration to grow to be an elephant. Maybe. I mean, just to put this into perspective, your sales numbers for last year have been 115,000 phones sold, whereas Samsung is selling 200 million, a little more. So just to put it in, so you're not an elephant yet. But I was wondering, this journey from a mosquito to an elephant, how would that look like? Would be one question. And can you actually change an industry only by being small, or also if you have a sizable market share?
Yeah, those are very similar questions in that sense. That you, I think it's also the phases in which you need. You know, a company has a certain life cycle as well, right? You have a life cycle of being a startup, a scale up, then you're a grown-up company. So you need that growth also to be able to get to a certain point that you have leverage. You are able to survive even as a company, right? So I think your question mainly is like, how big do you want to have that company be to make an impact without losing track of the mission? Mm-hmm. And I think what is I believe that you can stay innovative, more innovative when you're a challenger brand. I believe also in the function, the role of a challenger brand, as long as a challenger brand also sees that they're part of a system that needs change as a whole. That's also why I believe that a lot of the scaling that you do as a challenger brand is within other companies also joining initiatives that you offer them. And I've always said that Fairphone also in a way creates a safe space for big companies to be able to do stuff that they would normally never be able to do because of PR risk or even mining. The only reason why Google and Tesla joined us was because they got sued for child labor in the supply chain. And then I thought, oh shit, okay, what's going on? How can we address this? And then we got them on board on those programs. So I think that that will be more difficult when you are the industry. Basically, when you're Apple, you are the industry. Having said that, you also need a certain skill to be able to have impact, right? So I also believe that Fairphone needs to grow bigger because we're vulnerable. We're vulnerable. We have one product company. We also have headphones. I can tell you, if you miss one component of the 1,000 components, well, that happens quite a lot because Apple and Samsung, they have, they just take everything they want. If there's a shortage, you have a problem. You can't make a product, you can sell a product, and your company can actually just die, basically. So you also need to grow to a certain size to have impact on that supply chain, and the only way to have impact on the supply chain is if you have a healthy supply chain as well and a healthy relationship with factories. Factories don't listen to you if you make 10,000 phones, I can tell you. That's why we needed to start with 20,000 and the promise of getting up to 100,000 with that factory. So it's really that balance that you have to find everywhere. So the big question is, how do you create the checks and balances that during that growth that you're having and that impact that you have, you don't get mission drift. And that's where these KPIs and all these, the incorporation of the company even comes in. So with Fairphone, I always wanted to set up Fairphone as a steward-owned company. That means that the voting right is disconnected from the actual shares, because I think it's really good if if there's a separation between money and power, especially in the company. We unfortunately we couldn't get to that point, and I've done it with my new company, and that also comes with all kinds of investment problems because most investors want to have a say in the company if they invest. But I think those are the structures that we are looking for also as Fairphone always. Like, how can we create a governance of the company in a way that we will not be squeezed for money as a company itself? And the example of the KPI is exactly that. The KPIs are signed off by everyone in terms of even the management of the investors. Their bonus incentives are connected to not only the financial KPIs but also the impact KPIs. Very long answer, sorry.
No, that's great. Follow-up answer. A question you were talking about the safe operating space and your mission drift. So now when we research companies on their journey towards more sustainability, then in, I'd say, 99% of the cases, it's a looming regulation or an actual regulation that is put in place where people, yes, it's in the end always people, but companies are saying, okay, now I have to shift.
Yeah.
And also you're saying, like Tesla and Google and who was joining you in this Congo initiative, they said, oh wow, there's a lawsuit around the corner, oh, we better team up with these kind green people.
Yeah.
So now I was wondering, but when you were founding the company, and I quoted you together with Patagonia, there wasn't regulation looming. I don't know if it ultimately was this Nintendo Switch, no, Nintendo something. I'm not into Nintendo. Your Nintendo example. Nintendo
was it the
something.
yes? Yeah, no.
Yes, okay. Whatever, I had a Game Boy. I think that was after that.
I'm a bit older than that.
And that was to be opened, I remember. So whatever. So it was Nintendo that got you there.
Yeah.
And was not regulation. Nevertheless, if you were about to tell these wonderful 150 people that are on a mission towards sustainability and they want to start their own company, would your number one advice be, well, look out for the new regulation and next regulation that's around the corner, or what drove you to foresee this future that now is part of, as you said, battery regulation, eco-design directive, and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that in a minute, how you changed Brussels. But yeah, how did you come up with that mission without this regulation chasing you?
Oh, and that's a very easy one.
Good.
You know, there's a lot. You know, there's a lot of stuff happening in the world, which, from a sustainability point of view, is just plainly stupid, right? We throw things on a big pile, we drive it to the incinerator and burn it, and then we get some energy out of it. Whereas we could have just, if we separate it, we could have done a lot of more stuff with it. But separating is much more expensive. So you get into all these weird kind of things. So just look around you where something is really stupid, you know, where it doesn't make sense that we are doing it from a sustainability point of view. And then you look at, okay, but why is business doing it? Well, you know, business is doing it because it's just cheaper to do it that way. And then you know that regulation will move towards making that more expensive. You know, bringing something to the incinerator will become more expensive, because in the end we will have to make, you know, we will have to create a more sustainable system here. So you know that the regulation will follow. The only problem is, at the moment that you are going to work on all these stupid problems, at that moment you're going to be dictated by the current system. Mm-hmm. And that makes operating as a social enterprise very difficult, because that's what I've learned as well. You are going to be dictated by the economic principles of the system that you want to change. So your future basically is not, it doesn't work in the present. So you have to have a really clear roadmap on when you are going to launch what in terms of your impact. Because if you want to do everything at once, and if you see all these things, you see it's plainly stupid, let's do it totally different. If you do it totally different, it's not going to work, because then you're just going to end up with a cost problem. Because your company, you know, you still make all these costs of doing stuff that another company doesn't have to do. So I think that's really in the planning, but identifying it, that is quite easy.
Mm-hmm. Following up on this, you say, well, you can't go against the market, you have to understand it and change it slowly, if I may rephrase. But now you're coming up with this phone saying, hey, this may work for 10 years. This is in very stark contrast to, I think in Switzerland, phone is currently used 1.5 years to 2 years, the most. Yeah. And then we have all these upcoming rental services, which are supposed to be more sustainable. And I know you also went into rental services. Let's talk about this also in a minute. Maybe even fueling these very short cycles. Now you come up with this Fairphone 5 for 10 years. How on earth can you believe that someone is up to using his or her phone for 10 years? Where do you take the guts from to say, hey, I change consumers, and I think in the end, it's the consumers that have to be changed to that extent?
Yeah, I think it doesn't come falling out of the sky as we're at the fifth phone. Our first phone, and then maybe to go back to the previous point as well. How do you gradually create that boldness? And not do everything at once. Fairphone 1 was a shitty phone, to be honest. And we knew that in terms we knew it was not going to be probably be able to use that for a very long time. But our focus there was on, we started as a campaign on raising awareness on conflict minerals. That was the start. And with that phone, we were able to do that. And then once we launched that, and my background is that Nintendo was still in my head. I said, well, but that phone needs to be open. We need to be able to also provide spare parts. So we launched the phone, and I just really wanted our spare parts to be also on the website, because it's just my own passion. So, and then we found out that there's a whole group of people that liked that. And that the whole right to repair movement was starting at that time. And that more and more people were thinking like, why the hell do I need my phone? Why do I need a new phone every time? So all these things were they were coming, but we were already starting that company. And it's just hearing that and getting that feedback because you're already there as a company. You're already in the market, and you know. So along the way, you also innovate, hear things, and you implement that in your product and in your vision, or the other way around. So it's not that everything from the start had been thought through. What we knew is that we wanted to create a more sustainable system. And the steps we take are, what was fair 100 years ago was, even child labor was fair 100 years ago. It's different now. Things will change, but if you have that big mission ahead of you. So those 10 years, to get to your question specifically on the 10 years, we know that it's the right time now because we have that research, we have that experience, and we know that people, also the technology is at a point, it's just commoditized. Phones have been commoditized, and you see that in the market. There's only like really high-end stuff or really low-end stuff, cheap stuff. So it's either fighting for like super tech or just prices. So there's nobody differentiating on anything else than technology, which is not relevant anymore, and then the only thing you have is price. So we are the only one that actually bring another value, and that is durability, longevity, circularity, and all these things that others don't. And as a niche brand, we don't need to aim for like those 200 million phones.
And you also came with, now we talked about the technology, and you also came with a new business model, especially now what you just presented, the Fairphone Easy. I was wondering, when I was looking at the Fairphone Easy business model, to what extent does that go against your core values that you put in place when you put the Fairphone to be bought on the market? And I would be interested in the discussions that you had on the board when deciding on this, because with the Fairphone Easy, and you all of a sudden have the customer as part of your equation. Fairphone is a repair phone, but if you want a product as a service, you may not want your customer to open your phone because probably you know better to repair it, and probably it's also better for the longevity of the product that you repair it instead. I try it myself, I found out it doesn't work, and then I send it back to you.
Yeah.
So why do you believe product as a service for electronic equipment could nevertheless be a good model?
Well, first of all, I think that I don't believe that it's a bad idea to have customers, have their own phones repaired. You can make the software in such a way that you can do a diagnose, through the software on what is broken, what is up, by plugging it into USB to the computer. You have all kinds of, that's the stuff that we're looking into. How can you make that easier? So that actually the remote, even on the ecological footprint, you don't need the logistics, like the reverse logistics, everything. So I think also there, just sending modules to the customer when something breaks makes it easier. But I don't know if Fairphone Easy is going to be a huge success. And to be honest, right now we see not a huge kind of enthusiasm around it. But I do know that it's the right thing to try, at least, and to look at how can we tweak that it does work. Because in the end, and then you go, there's a customer perspective, and that is the tough one to crack. And that is what we're doing with launching products to find out how we can get that relationship with that customer standing. But from a company, it's crystal clear. At the moment, if you look at the profit and loss of a company, right? At the moment that you use cell phones, and that's your business model, you don't want anyone to come back with your phone, because if you come back, you are cost. We reserve in our profit and loss cost on the warranty. The 5-year warranty for us is a huge cost. It's something we have to get all these components and stack them, because nobody will make these components. We have to think how many do we need, how long do we provide them, and so it's all cash up front. There's a whole complexity behind making that possible. If we have a service model, So intrinsically, basically, a company is motivated to sell you a new phone as soon as possible. And it's intrinsically motivated to give you really bad customer support. Because if you come back, please not. So it's really built in a wall to not get you there. We want to do the opposite. With Fairphone Easy, the whole world changes all of a sudden for a company, because if I have a subscription, you pay a monthly fee, I want you to keep that phone as long as possible, because if I have to give you a new phone, it costs me money because I need to produce a new phone. So you have an intrinsic kind of motivation to have somebody keep the phone as long as possible. And that happens to be our mission. So I haven't cracked it, the company hasn't cracked it, but we do see that there's a trend in the whole world. Also, if you look at Grover in Germany, where they start, which is a company that's hugely invested in, and it works really well at the moment in terms of renting it out to businesses, the service model. I believe that it is possible to do it for customers.
My last critical question before I open the floor. Have you ever tracked how many people only have a Fairphone? And how many people have a Fairphone? And I was so glad that you mentioned at the beginning, because my office mate back in the days had the Fairphone 1.
Yeah.
And we always joked, you don't have a Fairphone, you have a repair phone. Because he had a Fairphone, but he couldn't make calls. So that was really, so he always took his Fairphone to say, hey, I'm part of this group. And we said, yeah, sure you are, but we can't call you. So do you know how many people actually own a Fairphone and own an extra phone, or for how many people the Fairphone is really the one phone?
Well, since Fairphone since Fairphone 2, 2 was the phone that really became the phone, as the only phone, but we were too ambitious, I can tell you. The Fairphone 2, I could take the screen apart with one hand because I thought that would be cool, right? So I was also as a CEO of the company at that time, I think we pushed the wrong kind of buttons to make the phone because we went too far into the modularity and repairability, and the result of that there was a phone that had a lot of issues. So the Fairphone 2 was an issue phone, but we learned a lot from that. But it was the start of the repairability thought, like the modularity. Fairphone 1 was to enter the market. Was really, I also told people, please make a phone that is good enough, right? That was really, because the rest, we don't have to be the newest, shiniest, this and that. And with Fairphone 2, that changes. It changed towards a technological product as well. With Fairphone 3, we got back to the drawing table set. We need to have a product which we can also service and maintain, and as a company grow with, and people need to be happy with it, right? So from Fairphone 3, I'm pretty confident that was people their own phone, the only phone they had. I hope, but I'm pretty confident. And the Fairphone 5 is you can see the reviews. Even Guardian gave a 5 out of 5 review on the phone, and it gets really, we've learned and we got to a point, and that's the space you have to allow yourself as well. And that is something you learn when you go along. But we got there to a point that it's really a good phone.
Thank you very much. I would have 8 pages more questions, but I think you also have a lot of questions. So
I have just one question for you.
Yes, please.
Because you started with this, I'm a bit, I was hoping for a bit more positive. Can you tell me what is it that you were hoping for, and what is it that hit the wrong spot there?
Of course.
Because I'm actually quite a positive person when it comes to to solving problems in the world, and I do think we are there.
That's great.
I just like to show the problems.
Please help me out. So to give you some numbers, so I think you really deserve a round of applause for 2022. You reduced your Scope 1 and 2 emissions to 100% compared to 2019.
Well, and it's not difficult for a company that has a supply chain.
Well, it's difficult for 99% of all other companies. Well, I think that is something. But then if I look at your Scope 3 emissions, downstream and upstream, you also want to achieve net zero by 2045.
Yeah.
I think I'm retired by 2045. So that was like, I thought you would have been more optimistic. And then a lot of people were, I looked at your boards in your team booth, a lot of people have a lot of hope for recycling. And I was really glad to hear that you said, yeah, a lot of people associate circular economy with recycling, but we will not recycle ourselves out of this mess. So I think that is an important message. And then I thought, well, okay, then you're maybe already ahead of the curve, but then you have a target of 40% of fair materials in 14 of your focus materials.
Yeah.
But you said you have like 50 different minerals in your phone. So 14 out of 50, that makes me think, well, we may be in deep shit in the others.
Yeah.
I can give you more numbers that made me like, ooh.
But that's not, I can answer all those and we can get hours on that. But
yeah.
I think the bottom line for me on this, I get your point, right? So shit. So yes, it's great. You got far, but in the end, how much effect does it have, right? And I think we are, as they could say in Dutch, dweilen met de kraan open. It's like. The shit is happening and we're trying to solve the shit. And this is all solving the shit. The real issue is that we have a systemic problem.
Yes.
Right? And that's the economic system and the way we run it, or in my opinion, is, and you can take that from different angles. You can take it from the angle of legislation, and it's very simple: vote right, or not right, but vote the right.
I was like, wow.
Well, vote well. Now, vote for social and environmental, right? That's where you start to create a change in terms of creating also the context in which this change can be done. And then you, as a customer, also have a vote with your wallet, so you can really buy the product. And then the companies have their own kind of challenges. And I believe in social enterprises, that you can actually set up a company with the right intent and then go for it. But in the end, all these three things need to go and work together. Because if you start going through all these things and all the materials and all these, I can tell you, if you want to create a Fairphone, the first thing you need to do is to create world peace. It's as simple as that, because that thing it's the whole world that you're talking about. That's the complexity, and that's the beauty, and that is the economic system, the beauty of the economic system that we've created. But the problem is on a system level. If you can show as a company, and that's why a challenger is so important, that you can innovate and do things differently on certain areas and take those out and show that it can be done differently and scale those, you have much more effect than you say, we're going for all the materials and all this stuff, and we're going to be all this and all that. And that's how we take it. We really are innovative on environmental solutions. And
ethical ones.
Huh?
And ethical ones, right?
Yeah, and sustainable. Thank you very much. Because sustainability has those two things. You have the social and the environmental. You need equality. You need ecology. You need all these things together to fall into place to be able to solve this big systemic problem. And that is what we are trying to achieve here, and not showing that we can have working conditions in all the thousands of factories that are involved in the making of a phone, because we don't have the power to do that as a company.
No. I was not about to say I'm accusing you of not doing enough. I was just saying...
No, I'm just explaining where the...
I always find like the spot where I say, there's still something to do. But I think this is why we have so many people here today helping with this out in the upcoming week. Questions?
Hi, thank you very much at first for the presentation. I think it was really insightful and a lot of thought-provoking aspects. But one thing that I was thinking about with the new business model is interoperability of your different phones. Because you had the first Fairphone, now you have the fifth one.
Yeah.
And you claim that you can use this phone for 10 years. But if it is modular and you can change parts, then I have also the incentive to change parts if technology progresses. And I mean, as a niche user, the most users you currently have, they maybe focus more on the sustainable part. But if you, at one point, want to really reach a market, not in the orders of Samsung, but I mean, on a way there, you have the disincentive to upgrade your phone if you have this interoperability. So I would be just interested on how your strategy is on this as a company.
Yeah, so there's a big difference. Thanks for the question. There's a big difference between repairability and upgradability, right? And then on top of that, you also have customizability, right? So if you have a customizable phone where you can put your phone together as something that you like, you had Project Ara, Google tried it, didn't work. I think from a sustainability point of view, it's a bad idea because what people do is they, they start changing, like you said, they start, just changing things really fast. And there have been studies around that. Does it actually, result in less waste? That's the customization. There's another problem with that. There's technology. I can go on and on about that, but the basic thing is that where most of the carbon footprint of a phone is in just one module, and that is the core module. And that is where the chipset is, the SoC, the system on a chip, the modem. It's where all the brains of the phone basically are. We've looked into even making that upgradable, right? So you can change it, but then you get to the point. Okay, but what if you upgrade that part, that 80% of the footprint after 2 years because you want to have a faster phone because there is a new module? Then you miss the whole point because the carbon footprint actually gets worse because you only start because you incentivize people to actually upgrade the part with the most footprint. So what we're focusing on is to have a system on a chip, that part, the most expensive and the part with the most footprint, that part is kept alive as long as possible. And there's two things that are important there. And that is the hardware around it. When there's a new camera, we've done camera upgrades, and the footprint of the camera is much lower than that part. So it's a great thing to do. But that these repairs, if the phone breaks, that you can still use it. And the other part is that software gets, and that's an overlooked one, but it's the most important part, I would say, is that that Android, that we have an Android phone, keeps upgrading and upgrading when there's new upgrades there. And we already see that with with the phone we just launched, we already committed also with Google and the chipset manufacturer to 5 upgrades. So that is where your real win is. And I don't believe, I'm still not convinced about the whole upgradability and customization of the phone. We've tried it. It works. It's nice. You launch your phone. You don't have to launch your phone. You just launch a new camera. But that's my view. And then on the cycles, because that's also a question I get a lot. Where why do you keep launching new phones every 2 years? It's not every year. That's for start. But still, it's every 2 years. So you buy a phone and you keep it for 8 years, and then Fairphone comes with a new phone after 2 years. Don't you incentivize people too much? We need to do that in order to be able to give that support for 8 years. You can imagine if we launch a phone, we sell it for 2 years, and we want to give that support for 5 to 10 years. You have to add those 2 years of sales to it, and then you go so far in the future that we can't promise anything anymore. So we need to launch a new phone after 2 years to be able to provide the customer the same kind of support.
All right, thank you.
It's a bit complex, but...
Okay, I think we had a question here.
Can I... Thank you. Even though it apparently was a shitty phone, I would be very interested in getting some inspiration of how you went about, like in a bit more detail, how you went about building a phone. I mean, that's an insane task.
Yeah, in short. Yeah, it was actually very simple, that one. The first phone, it turned out to be a shitty phone. Obviously, we didn't want to launch a shitty phone to start with, right? It turned out to be less of a fit for this market than we thought. So what happened is we went to a factory in China. We had the crowdfunders already, and we were basically selling a phone with them. We wanted to have a phone where we didn't want to use the money for development cost. Right, so because making a phone is 5 to 10 million just to start with, and we had 7.5 million. We wanted to use that for actually producing the phones and then ship them, and not having venture capital, any shareholders in there, because we were afraid for mission drift. We financed the company for the first 5 years through our own pre-sales because of that reason. So what we did is we went to China and we looked for what you call white label phone, which is an existing phone that was not launched in the European market. So this phone, Fairphone 1, was launched already in the Russian market at the time by a Chinese company. And I saw the phone, I kept it in my hand, I felt it a bit, and I thought like, yeah, I think this will be the one. And that was it. We looked at it, and then I started to learn how chipset works, how all these things work, and it was more like a feel of that could be launched. The only thing we did is we made it more sturdy, so we put better glass in there, but the real focus was on the components and the supply chain, conflict-free materials. So what we did do was really incorporate already closed-loop supply chains where we knew from which mines with bagging and tagging which minerals went to the refineries, and those through mass balance systems came into the phone, and that's where a lot of the work went. And the design of the phone was purely an existing phone, which we gave a better look for the European market.
Hello, I have a question. Yeah, so Fairphone, does it act more a system integrator because a phone has around 1,000 components, or do you do also integrated circuit design?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but we do the SMT, like the surface mount technology, everything. Or is that not your question?
Yes, so you also do IC design and then you adapt the software?
No, sorry. No, we don't design the IC, so you get all the components. So we do the assembly, but we do all the integration, right? So we do have to program everything together. So basically with the phone business, what you do is you get a reference phone. The chipset manufacturers, they launch a reference phone, and based on that reference phone, which is basically a flat surface with all kinds of components connected to each other, where you can, which you can design then into your own product, but you have to do all the integration yourself with the cameras and the software and everything.
And how much performance you lose by doing modularity?
Sorry?
How much performance do you lose when you implement modularity?
You don't lose in performance. You lose in the structural. No, not lose. I don't see it as a loss, but you need more space, right? So the mechanical has an impact on the mechanics of the phone, and the mechanics, because you use compartments, it gets thicker. Back in the days, we had Nokias, when you could take out the battery, and it was a compartment, but it was a thick phone. So the phone we are getting it thinner and thinner, even though we have the compartments and the modularity. But that also took us a while to crack that. But the trade-off is mainly mechanical and industrial design. So the ID looks different.
Hello, I'm Zeno, and I'm really thankful for your, I'm here.
I was like, where's it come from?
And I'm really thankful for your inspiring talk. I actually studied at TU Delft as well, and there I was really active in the startup space, and I would love to start a company myself, and I'm really interested in the launching process. And I was wondering, how did you go about choosing the countries where you want to launch in? So the Netherlands, that's the first choice, but then why Germany, or why Switzerland, or maybe the whole European market?
Yeah. There was not really a process. What we did is we was more like this. We wanted to do crowdfunding. We didn't want to go to a crowdfunding platform. So what we did is we just put a button on a that you have these software, this shop services, your Shopify and all these services. So we just open a Shopify. The whole payment system was already integrated. So we used that to get money from people up front, that payment service also basically was available in all European countries. So we just we thought, well, let's give it a try, and the result of that was that we were surprised that most of the phones were sold in Germany, then Switzerland, then France, then UK, and then Holland. So Holland was really not that much phones that we sold, we had huge problems getting phones to exotic islands somewhere in Norway, and we missed on that one, and we learned a lot from how the market is by just launching.
And is Fairphone also available outside of Europe at the moment, or?
No, so now we have a very strict strategy on it. So from all those learnings, we said, well, our focus countries are Germany, France, UK, and Holland. And we're entering the Nordics. But so what happens now is that we're really putting marketing money also next to it. And that's when the costs are going really to drive up. We just raised 50 million also to spend on marketing. Which is very low budget, if you compare it with the big guys, but it's a lot of money. So then you have to think of what market and who do you want to reach, and then so that whole process started kicking in. But in the beginning, we were just launching to try and find out, now there's an additional complexity when you ship to countries with a different time zone. Because you have your services, so that's why we're not in the US yet. We launched in Taiwan, and we'll launch in Australia though, but we got good partners there.
So your advice would be to just try in the beginning, see what.
I'm not sure if that would be good advice though.
Okay.
But I think you should put a bit more thought in it than we did, because the shit really hit the fan with us. But from logistics, all the problems that we had, and it was worth something as well, because we got to learn about the market. But it was. I think you're familiar with MVPs, right? Minimal viable products. I think you can try out if you have if you do it with a plan.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to say thank you for your talk, and now I would like to know what are the first steps that are needed to transform such a great idea to a whole startup. So what skill set do you need to have as a founder?
Yeah, I think one of the things I've learned is that it's really tough also as a founder to do this alone. I really hit the wall at a point that much that my partner had to get me to the crisis center of the mental health clinic even, because I was just seriously burned out by everything happening. If you are in a plane, a startup is a plane that you start flying, you don't know how to fly, and you're still building it, and that's scary. So you're doing stuff that you've never done before, and nobody in the team probably has. But it helps if you have people around you that have done that startup thing before, or know how to do that certain area. And then my advice on, and that's what I've done with the other company as well, is look at it as a design also the founder team. Design that first group of people. Think about what kind of skills work together. So it's not. The question is not what should your skill set be. The question should be, okay, what is my skill set, and how does it work with other people in my team, and how do I make that work when we grow? Because one of the things also with a startup is really ruthless towards people in terms of if you're not needed by the company. Normally, in a bigger company, you can find out where you can put people, or how you keep your job. And in a startup, it's like if you don't, you can be as good as you are. But if you're good, but you're not needed at that point, you will have friction. So that's something to keep in mind when you grow a company, that might happen with people that are too far ahead, maybe too corporate and can't handle the flexibility in the beginning. And answer your question, Ed?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have here.
Hello. Hi, thanks for the wonderful talk and the inspirational product. I'm here.
Oh, there.
Yes. It's great, the repairability aspect. I really like the green guide plot that you showed with the different companies. And at the moment, the companies which are far behind are the ones that have captured the market in India and China, which are like the developing countries with the most smartphone users.
Yeah.
And I think from personal experience, I can tell you that people don't really care about sustainability when it comes to having features on a phone for less cost.
Yeah.
And my concern is that the price point of Fairphone is such that it may not appeal to the market where the consumption is really high and that of unsustainable products. So is there a strategy or a thinking within Fairphone to launch or introduce it in these high consumption markets with maybe a better price to feature ratio, or a cheaper Fairphone, or putting the people who have the habit of changing phones every few months to using a phone that lasts for a few years, let's say. So
yeah, it's a very good question. It's one that we come up. Yeah, it's obviously something that if you talk about sustainability, you can't just talk about one country or one area or one. But if you talk about markets, you have huge differences. How I see it is that I happen to live in Europe, and I know that market, and I know how people think much more than I know about markets like India or China, and that's how Fairphone came to exist. We wanted to create that awareness here, and we focused on this area. We didn't and do not still have a strategy on other markets than the high-end markets, for the reason that we just also don't know those customers too much. And I think what you say as well is, what is a product market fit for those areas? Because this product is not a good fit for those countries. I totally agree. We don't have the ambition to go there, but if you do, then you have to really think about those that fit as well. And I do think that we could have huge impact also in these areas, but I believe that that's something that really needs a partnership, a strategic partnership to do that, because the DNA of our company probably is not solid enough to know what those markets should need.
Just as a quick follow-up, has there ever been an idea within Fairphone to make sustainability give itself an appeal? Like iPhone may not be the best phone in terms of features, but it gives this appeal which makes the customers buy them, like as a luxury good. So has there been a promotion of this kind of an idea where sustainability becomes a sign of luxury?
Yeah, so what we've done is that if you look at we're growing from like dark green customers, like the early adapters of technology, a bit similar, people that really want to buy that product even though it doesn't work, right? Because they want to make that statement. So for them, it's already that statement, right? But that statement is something different for people that you might call, it's a bit, I don't like the words, but let's say lighter green, that focus on different, that where sustainability is more of an extra, right? And then in that scope, you have from dark green sustainability, I'm willing to do compromises, and I'm going to buy that product. I'm going to drive around, or drive on my bike to get to the shop that has the most sustainable product. I think we're getting to a point that to grow that market and to have more impact, we also need to look at people that want to have be more comfortable. And I think for Fairphone, one of the areas where we're strong is not so much on the aesthetics design, but on design thinking. Right, so the whole company it comes from the people that have started it, like me. We're all designers, so I do think that on the design of the phone, we can still make a huge step. The only thing is that our design principles have been from the inside out. I have the phones here. I have the Fairphone 5. We have a transparent back as well, so you can really look into the phone. It's designed from the inside, literally, which no one in the phone industry does, and that makes it stand out. But the question is that enough for those customers? And that's where our price point and other things also come in.
Maybe we take one last question, but I heard that Bas will maybe stay for a drink or two.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
great.
Yeah.
Hello. I actually have a lot of questions, but something is stuck with me that you said. You mentioned to compete with all these companies, you have to start with a progress, so you can't just throw all your idea, the whole idea, and expect everyone to be hyped about it and go for it. But like for me, the Fairphone 1 and of today, they both have like still the same idea. Like the advertisement is basically the same, just like with more techniques. So how did you do it? Like with your advice, it doesn't really match up together.
If I just to reiterate your question, you say, well, I don't do everything at once is one thing, and then I say, or is it the changing of the company?
You said we should not do everything at once. You can't just throw the whole idea. But for me, it sounds like you threw the whole idea and it worked out.
Yeah. No, yeah, well, you have to be lucky as well. No, but no, it's not that. It's not that what I mean. What I mean with you can throw out. You can have you can think about your mission, right? You have to have a very strong mission, a very strong vision on where you want to go. You don't have to have all the product aspects and everything, because that first commercial, I don't know if you've seen it, but there was nothing about repairability in there.
I mean, I think there was.
You show the inside of a product, but there was nothing about, but it was about being able to know, it was about looking into your product and not fixing it and use it as long as possible. It was about the curiosity about what's inside it. And with that comes also repairability. So I think the curiosity of going inside a product, if you can't open it, you don't own it. Those kind of things have been, it's the DNA of Fairphone. It's also my background. I've been in open hardware design for a very long time, open source software developer. So I come from the open source software how you call it, community. So in that sense, that is in there. But my point is that you have to be careful not to do everything at once, because it's hard to manage. It's just really hard to manage. But you can have all the ideas, but put them in a plan and say, first this, then that, and then along the way, you will find out that things don't work and you'll adjust your plan, or other things do work.
But I thought you sold the phone without knowing how to do a phone, so you didn't have a plan.
Sorry?
But I thought you sold the phone, but you don't know how to build the phone, so you didn't have a plan.
I didn't know. No, because for me it was never about the phone. Still, no, I didn't even have a phone at the time. I never had a phone until my Fairphone 2, because I don't like phones that much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you very much. Okay, so thanks for joining. Katharina, any last words? Or
I think that were the perfect last words.
Oh, okay.
I think this is the perfect bridge to refuse about what we will talk about tomorrow.
Yeah. I lived without a phone for a long time. I was very happy.
Okay, so the drink tank is open. I think Bas might be there, he said. No pressure, but so the bar is open downstairs. Also for our guests, thank you very much for coming. And please sign up for a newsletter if you want to attend more events like this. And of course, big round of applause for Bas van Abel.